Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
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 Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadham Hari.
Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari.
Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadham Hari.
Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yamuna Tera Vanacham Hari.
Yamuna Tira Vanachari.
Yamuna Tera Vanacham Hari.
Yamuna Tira Vanachari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
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 Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadham Hari.
Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari.
Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadham Hari.
Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridharadhari.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yamuna Tera Vanacham Hari.
Yamuna Tira Vanachari.
Yamuna Tera Vanacham Hari.
Yamuna Tira Vanachari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari.
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 Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari. Jaya Girivaradhari.
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 Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Brajajana Ranjana. Jaya Brajajana Ranjana.
Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Brajajana Ranjana Jaya Brajajana Ranjana
Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Brajajana Ranjana Jaya Brajajana Ranjana
Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Brajajana Ranjana Jaya Brajajana Ranjana
Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari
Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari
Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Brajanarandana Jaya Brajanarandana
Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Brajajana Ranjana Jaya Brajajana Ranjana
Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari
Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari
Radha Shandara Hare
Jaya Radha Sham Sundara Radha Sham Sundara
Jaya Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram
Jaya Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram
Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Gauranitai
Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Gauranitai
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev
Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev
Jaya Vishwapad Paramahamsa Vichaya Shokta Shokta Shishna Hey Sri Bhaktivedanta Krishna Sri Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Kuri Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Gaunitai Ki Jai Sri Kṛṣṇa Ki Jai Sri Radha Shyamsundar Ki Jai Go Premanande Hari Hari Bol Samavita Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai All glories to the Assembled devotees All glories to the Assembled devotees All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Ranga All glories to Sri Prabhupada Reading from the Bhagavad Gita as it is 6th chapter, text number 15. Yuñjann evaṁ sadātmānaṁ yogī niyata-mānasaḥ śāntiṁ nirvāṇa-paramāṁ mat-saṁsthām adhigacchati yuñjann evaṁ sadātmānaṁ yogī niyata-mānasaḥ śāntiṁ nirvāṇa-paramāṁ mat-saṁsthām adhigacchati. Word for word. yuñjann, practicing, evaṁ, as mentioned above, sada, constantly, sadātmānaṁ, body, mind, and soul, yogī, the mystic transcendentalist, niyata-mānasaḥ, with a regulated mind, śāntiṁ, peace, nirvāṇa-paramāṁ, cessation of material existence, mat-saṁsthām, the spiritual sky, the kingdom of God, adhigacchati, was attained. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Translation. Thus, practicing constant control of the body, mind, and activities, the mystic transcendentalist, his mind regulated, attains to the kingdom of God, or the abode of Kṛṣṇa, by cessation of material existence. Purport. The ultimate goal in practicing yoga is now clearly explained. Yoga practice is not meant for attaining any kind of material facilities. It is to enable the cessation of all material existence. One who seeks an improvement in health or aspires after material perfection is no yogi, according to Bhagavad Gita. Nor does cessation of material existence entail one's entering into the void, which is only a myth. There's no void anywhere within the creation of the Lord. Rather, the cessation of material existence enables one to enter into the spiritual sky, the abode of the Lord. The abode of the Lord is also clearly described in the Bhagavad Gita as that place where there is no need of sun, moon, or electricity. All the planets in the spiritual kingdom are self-illuminated, like the sun in the material sky. The kingdom of God is everywhere, but the spiritual sky and the planets thereof are called param-dhām, or superior abodes. A consummate yogi who is perfect in understanding Lord Kṛṣṇa, as is clearly stated herein by the Lord, mat-citta, mat-paramāṁ, mat-sthanam, can attain real peace and can ultimately reach his supreme abode, Kṛṣṇa Loka, known as Vrindavan. In the Brahma Samhita, it is clearly stated, Goloka eva nivasatya khalatma bhuto. The Lord, although residing always in his abode called Golok, is the all-pervading Brahman and the localized Paramatma as well, by dint of his superior spiritual energies. No one can reach the spiritual sky, Vaikuntha, or enter the Lord's eternal abode, Golok Vrindavan, without the proper understanding of Kṛṣṇa and his plenary expansion, Vishnu. Therefore, a person working in Kṛṣṇa consciousness is the perfect yogi, because his mind is always absorbed in Kṛṣṇa's activities. Savaimana Kṛṣṇa Padaravindayo. In the Vedas also, Shvetashvatar Upanishad, we learn, Tam eva vidittatim mritum meti. One can overcome the path of birth and death only by understanding the Supreme Personality of God, Kṛṣṇa. In other words, perfection of the yoga system is the attainment of freedom from material existence and not some magical jugglery or gymnastic feats to befool innocent people. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Sirupam Sagradatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vittam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Kṛṣṇa Pada Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Vidamscha. He Kṛṣṇa Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatade Gopesh Govika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaskade Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavane Shari Brijavano Sudedevi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatrundascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Sri Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Kṛṣṇa Hare Kṛṣṇa 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Yuñjann evaṁ sadātmānaṁ yogī niyata-mānasaḥ śāntiṁ nirvāṇa-paramāṁ mat-saṁsthām adhigacchati. Thus practicing constant control over the body, mind and activities, the mystic transcendentalist, his mind regulated, attains to the kingdom of God or the abode of Kṛṣṇa by cessation of material activities. Kṛṣṇa in this chapter is speaking about Dhyan Yoga. Dhyan means meditation on ultimately the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yoga means to link. Of course, there are different yogis, different transcendentalists, different persons meditating on the absolute truth. But for all of them, and as it is mentioned in the scriptures, it is important that they follow regulative principles according to the scriptures. Specifically, as mentioned here also, niyata-mānasaḥ, that the manas, the mind, must be controlled. As in the beginning of this chapter, Kṛṣṇa is saying, for one who has controlled the mind, the super soul is already reached. And then, of course, things go much easier. If one is in contact with the super soul, Paramatma, the Lord within one's heart. And then the mind is the best friend, of course. But if the mind is not controlled, then it's the greatest enemy. And to make advancement in spiritual life is not possible. So niyata-mānasaḥ, someone has to control the mind. So specifically also, Prabhupada is mentioning here that constant control of the body, mind and activities must be there. So constantly one has to try to control the mind in the senses. And so as Prabhupada is explaining, some persons, they're trying to do that by meditating on the impersonal aspect of the Absolute Truth, the light or the void. But that ultimately is not possible to think of the void of nothing. How we can think of nothing? The light, what cannot be thinking of the light. So thinking means actually then some tangible object should be there. And for the devotees, as Prabhupada is quoting also from the Bhagavatam, Savai Kṛṣṇa Parāda Vindayo, Ambarish Maharaj. So the king, the emperor, he was the emperor, but still he was a great devotee, and he himself was worshipping the Lord in the temple himself, without the help of anyone. So one has to think of the Supreme Lord, his qualities, his associates, his pastimes. So that is positive thinking. And yoga ultimately means to link with the Supreme Lord, with the personal form of the Lord, not with nothing. And specifically also here, that the śāntiṁ, one will attain peace if one is controlling the mind, the senses, and especially if one is taking shelter of lotus feet of Kṛṣṇa, who is the source of the greatest bliss, Paramananda. So every yogi, every transcendentalist has to control the mind, the senses, the body. And as explained here also, that nirvāṇa-paramāṁ, so cessation of material existence. One has to give up attachment to this material world, to anything of this material world. And one has to, because one cannot be without emotions, without thinking, without feelings, without desires, but that should be directed towards Kṛṣṇa. Thinking about Kṛṣṇa, acting for Kṛṣṇa's pleasure. So that is the positive engagement, that is the real engagement. And by doing this, by the positive engagement, one can give up the negative, the inferior, the material activities. Also here saw the word mat-saṁsthām. So one can attain, samstha means which here refers to the kingdom of God, the spiritual sky. Samstha is actually a place. So that is the transcendental realm, the abode of the Lord. Paramdham, the supreme abode. And so actually, there are many planets in the spiritual sky. But the highest, as Prabhupada is mentioning here, that is the abode of Kṛṣṇa, also known as Golok Vrindavan. Of course, Kṛṣṇa Loka is divided in four: Mathura, Puri, Dwarka Puri, and then Brajpuri, Brajdham, Golok Dham. And then also situated next to Golok, non-different and different from Golok, is treated in Navadvip, where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is residing and performing his pastimes. So ultimately, that is the highest abode, and that is the destination for the devotees, for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, the associates of Mahaprabhu, the followers of Mahaprabhu, the devotees of Mahaprabhu. They want to go to Mahaprabhu's abode, Chaitanya Navadvip, or Krishna's abode, Golok Vrindavan. And most of our acharyas in our sampradaya, after Mahaprabhu, so they are devotees of both, of Mahaprabhu and of Krishna. And so they may attain both abodes. So the devotee who is controlled, was given up material activities, so he can attain peace, śāntiṁ. And then he can attain the spiritual world, especially for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas and Golok Vrindavan. And then here Prabhupada also is mentioning in the purport that, quoting from the Brahma Samhita, Goloka eva nivasatya kilatma bhuto. The Lord is all pervading. At the same time, he is residing in his own abode, Golok, but still is all pervading. And the Brahma Jyoti, the big light, in which they want to merge the impersonalist, the Mayavadis, that is emanating from Krishna's transcendental body. That is the effulgence from his body. That is the Brahma Jyoti. So none different from Krishna ultimately. And then the Paramatma is also there. In the material world, the super soul accompanying all the different jivas in the different material bodies. So that form is also non-different from the Supreme Lord, but at the same time some difference is there. Achinta Veda Veda Tattva. It is inconceivable. And the absolute truth is inconceivable. But by the mercy of the Lord, the Vaishnavas, we can have some understanding. So Achintya, it is inconceivable. Veda Veda Tattva. So it is simultaneously non-different and it is different. So Vishnu, Ram, they are not different from Krishna, but is different also. Similarly, even the material world, which is coming from Krishna, and it, of course everything, the Brahma Jyoti is not different from the Lord and different. Even the material world. So that has come from the Supreme Lord, from Krishna. So that is also non-different from him and different from him. Similarly, the jivas, or the Shakti Tattva, the expansions of the Lord are there. Even the energies of the Lord are there. So many energies are there. And the Mool Shakti, the original energy, that is Srimati Radharani. But the other goddess of fortune, Durga Devi, Saraswati, and so on. So they are all expansions of Srimati Radharani. So Krishna is Mool Roop, the original form, and Srimati Radharani, she is Mool Shakti, the original energy. And so then everything is no different from the Lord and different from the Lord. And so Prabhupada also is explaining here in the purport that no one can reach the spiritual sky, like Vaikuntha, or enter into the Lord's eternal abode, Golok Vrindavan, without the proper understanding of Kṛṣṇa and his plenary expansion, Vishnu. So without having a clear understanding of this transcendental subject matter, one cannot enter this spiritual kingdom. And Kṛṣṇa, as before he has explained, again and again he's explaining, like in 4th chapter, text number 11. Janma karma chame divyam evaṁ yo veti tattvataha tyaktādhyam punā janma naiti mam eti sajuna. Tattvataha, in truth, veti tattvataha. One who knows Kṛṣṇa in truth. Janma karma chame divyam. And his appearance, his activities, which are all transcendental. One who can understand them clearly. And also, the devotees are very merciful. And they're trying to give this knowledge to others, what they have learned. The devotee is merciful. He's thinking about the benefit of others. Sarva bhutehi terataha, not just thinking about himself. So, a proper understanding has to be there, and then one has to be fully engaged with body, mind, and words. And we should try to help others also. So there are many transcendentalists, but the perfect yogi is he who is always thinking about Kṛṣṇa. As explained in the last verse of this chapter. Yogi nama visarvesham madgatera antaratmana. One who is always thinking about me within his heart is the best of all yogis. But he's not only thinking about Kṛṣṇa, but he's serving Kṛṣṇa also. Jiveda sopoi Kṛṣṇa nityadas, because it is the constitutional position of the jiva, that is to serve Kṛṣṇa. Savāyamana Kṛṣṇa padāra vindaya. So Ambarish Maharaj was serving Kṛṣṇa. He was hearing about Kṛṣṇa. He was speaking about Kṛṣṇa. And then he was fixing his mind on the lotus feet of Kṛṣṇa and Kṛṣṇa's beautiful form. So, and that is actually the only way, as mentioned here also by Prabhupada, and in Bhagavad Gita, of course, that how one can overcome the path of birth and death. Only by surrendering to Kṛṣṇa one can become free from the cycle of birth and death. Of course, the Mayavadis, they want to merge into the impersonal aspect of the Absolute Truth. Those who are qualified, they may do so, but there's no use of that. There's only some whereas in this material world, so of course, the Lord may also appear, and He's appearing also regularly, but not everyone can see Him. Only those who are qualified. So these different yogis are there, but the foremost is the one who is always thinking about Kṛṣṇa and serving Kṛṣṇa. So then the Mayavadis are there, those also meditating on the personal aspect. And even nowadays in the material world, some who are saying that yoga is only some physical process of some gymnastic feats, as Prabhupada is explaining. But that is just one aspect. Even so, those who are meditating on Paramatma, they're doing Ashtanga Yoga, the 8 limbs of yoga there. Yam, Niyam, Asan, Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dharana, Dhyan, and Samadhi. So, Ashtanga, 8 limbs are there of this yoga. So first, Yam and Niyam, one has to follow some rules and regulations. Some do's and don'ts are there, which have to be followed by all the yogis. And then asana, sitting properly or performing some yoga asanas to keep the body healthy, which is also important to keep the body healthy. But then they are just concentrating on that, but there's no spiritual realization, spiritual teaching about the actual meaning of yoga. So it is not just some exercises, some yoga postures, but it is meant to enable the embodied being to have a healthy body. So the yoga is there, they may be there, so that ultimately they can do spiritual activities and then do the connection with the Lord. Yoga, so that means actually connection with the Lord. Between the soul and the super soul. And then the soul and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan, that is the highest. That is a real connection. That is the eternal connection is there with the Supreme Lord. And the highest abode is the Lord, where Kṛṣṇa is residing. So Yam may be there. Also the devotees are doing asanas to keep good health, may be there. Pranayam, breathing exercises to control the mind and the senses. Pranayam is helpful. It is good for the health of the body, which is needed to serve Kṛṣṇa. So therefore, even sometimes devotees are doing some yoga asanas. They're doing pranayam also, and to have a healthy body, to help to control the mind and the senses. And then it is easier to engage in spiritual activities. It is easier to focus on the Supreme Lord and to actually serve the Supreme Lord. And then pratyahar also, one has to control the senses. That is for all, as explained before. And then only, so if one is following rules and regulations and being engaged in some positive activity, service to the Lord, worshipping the deities, and so on. So then, but then especially by hearing also about the Lord. So by hearing about Kṛṣṇa, about Mahaprabhu, serving the deity form of Mahaprabhu and Kṛṣṇa, then one can actually remember Kṛṣṇa or Mahaprabhu. And in the age of Kali, especially through the chanting of the mantra, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So Dhyan Yoga actually is remembering Kṛṣṇa, his wonderful qualities and pastimes with his devotees. Dhyan is already more concentrated, but actually And before that comes dharana. Dharana means to hold, sometimes being able to remember Krishna. Jnana is more deep, more concentrated, more substantial. And then the highest is samadhi. Samadhi, D means intelligent, sama means equiposed. When one is equiposed by having practiced devotional service, then he may constantly remember the Lord. Samadhi, so that is the absorption in the Lord, in the remembrance of Krishna, his qualities and pastimes. But in the age of Kali, it is usually attained by chanting the Mama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Any question? Any question? No question? No question?
Yes, anyone has any questions, you can unmute and ask or write on the chat.
Hare Krishna. So we are very fortunate to be in this wonderful sampradaya of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, connected to Vrindavan Dham in the most auspicious month of Kartik. So we should simply be engaged in chanting the holy names and studying the scriptures and serving the Lord, Hari Guru Vaishnava, and the Spirit Master and the devotees, and by being constantly absorbed in doing that, so then we can advance more and more to the highest destination. And so in the age of Kali, the only means is the chanting of the holy names, the Maha Mantra. But in the stage of the sadhaka, who is practicing, so actually the chanting of the Maha Mantra has to be accompanied by the worship of the deity form and by also very regularly hearing about Mahaprabhu and Krishna in the advanced devotees. So in this way, then one can advance more and more into that life in Krishna consciousness, by the mercy of Hari Guru and the Vaishnavas. Okay, so if there are no questions, we stop.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada.